So, firstly, Jinal, thank you so much for doing this. Aside from the fact that I've known you playing sports and we've got to know each other on a very informal level, I'm really grateful that you're doing this and I'm getting to know your business much better under the excuse of a project, obviously. So, first things first, can you tell us where you studied from, what you've studied, and how did you get into the pharmaceutical industry?
So Pradyum, first of all, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be a part of this. And coming back to the question you asked, well, I'm just the usual backbencher of an engineering college. I did my electronics and communication engineering from Mallareddy Engineering College in Hyderabad. I always had a plan in place where I wanted to finish my engineering and then go to the United States to do my master's and then expand my father's business in pharma. But growing up with my father, he started this business in 1994, and all along my growth, I've seen pharmaceutical drugs, and since then I knew this was my calling.
This podcast and wants to know, what does Kunal Pharma exactly do? Of course, I understood you're into pharmaceutical distribution, but I'd like you to throw more light on it as to what your firm does and what kind of drugs do they expertise in. In my knowledge, it's oncology, but I'd like to hear from you also.
So eventually, over a period of time, my elder brother Kunal joined the family business in 2011, if I'm not wrong, and he helped my father expand the business and move from pharmaceutical drugs and towards oncology medicines and super specialty medicines. And I later joined the family business in 2016, if I'm not wrong. I wanted to, but by then I realized that healthcare sector was actually a vast sector. There was still a lot more to be explored. So I started identifying new companies in terms of medical devices and pharmaceutical diagnostics. And today, as I say, in 2025, we are an established supplier for essential life-saving drugs pertaining to oncology, cardiology, nephrology, neurology, urology, and orthopedics. So I also do a lot of game in pharmaceutical diagnostics and medical devices and surgicals. But predominantly, yes, 60% of my business is in and around oncology. Oncology has itself evolved over a period of time. Like I remember during the initial days, early 2000s, there used to be just chemotherapy.
Correct.
So with time came in targeted therapy, with time came in gene therapy, hormone therapy and immunotherapy drugs. And I think the future now is CAR T-cell therapy.
Could you shed more light on CAR T-cell therapy?
There has been a lot of advancement and a lot of significant research being done by pharma giants across the globe for I think almost a decade. So CAR T-cell therapy is officially now launched in the United States, where they take out a certain portion of your blood cell, they take it out from your body, they have it mixed with monoclonal antibody or another composition. It is stored and...
So, we'll continue on what you were saying. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to ask so that I get a better understanding. What was monoclonal therapy?
So, we have to go through this to understand, but it is still not our job. The company has their own set of representatives who go meets the doctors on a day-to-day basis and gives them advancements in terms of treatments. Like monoclonal antibody is generally known as MAB. M-A-B, monoclonal antibody. These are nothing but biological products. These are not your regular pharmaceutical active ingredient based products. These are biological products which are again very complex. They are a certain style of targeted therapy based cancer treatment. So I will be able to give you a more detailed...
Can you continue on the part where you said...
a part of certain cells from your body are stored until they're stored under certain temperature ranges and certain conditions, and then after a particular period of time they're injected back into your body, and that believes to kill all the cancer cells alive in your body. This is proven. This is already been done in the United States of America almost I think a year back. In fact, the first CAR T-cell therapy in India I think conducted at AIIMS Delhi almost 6 months back with a 100% success ratio, because it took 6 months for the doctor to see if the patient had a relapse. So the patient is doing good till date, and now since all the clinical trials have passed, you'll probably start seeing everything on the news very soon. All the Indian pharma giants like Dr. Reddy's, Sun Pharma, Intas, Zydus, they're all working on that particular composition where your human cells are mixed with. So Dr. Reddy's is one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies from India, and I believe they would be amongst the first to launch this product.
I wanted to ask you, could you give us a portfolio or a small list or a small context for the number of companies that you distribute products for or your pharmaceuticals for, which which companies do you represent through Kunal Pharma?
So a pretty good portfolio of 50 plus companies at the moment. Our major focus in Kunal Pharma has been towards working with the multinational companies only, because we are an ethical company. We like to follow ethics. We work with compliances, and my Indian companies are not as compliant as they seem like. So that's why we've always stuck to the multinational brand range that we wanted to. Now companies like Pfizer, Novartis, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, Bristol Myers Squibb, Grifols, Amgen, Eli Lilly and Company, Pepu Synthesis. So there's a lot more, as I said, 50 plus. So we have all the companies under the banner of Kunal Pharma. We have exclusive and non-exclusive agreements with them for certain kind of treatments that the company offers.
So I had to, in the pharmaceutical business, you can divide your business probably into two parts. One is your general pharma, your normal medicines and tablets that you get at your walk-in pharmacy, and the second category of pharmaceutical product is the one that you distribute for major portfolios like oncology, nephrology, etc. But there's a lot of difference between the ways in which both of these business function. In general medicine, it's moreover you focus on the volumes of sales, and the margins are obviously slightly limited. With products in the nephrology space, in the oncology space, are the margins higher because the accessibility to the volumes in this country is comparatively low, or because Kunal Pharma has exclusive access to all of these products, they have a higher margin? How is it like, if you could set some context?
So well, see, margins are something which you wouldn't be happy to hear about, because the world thinks that healthcare and pharma are big businesses, people make big money, but trust me, we are just service providers. We are just a supply chain and distribution partner for these companies. So a general pharma company would probably offer their distributor 10 to 15% plus the extra schemes, like you buy 10,000 strips, you get 200 free. So when you do the compounding and the calculation, their gross profits would probably be above 20 maybe. But again, see, that's a volume-based business. So when it comes to specialty drug, the volumes are lower, but the values are much higher. The margins are less, but the overall volumes are picking up in India slowly. So we majorly, our scope of business is building the volume. Margins are lesser, but bigger volumes will give us a good profitability to run the show for a longer time.
So I wanted to ask, how many SKUs do you have, and in how many cities do you function?
So predominantly, we started with Hyderabad. Our registered office is still in Hyderabad, but we've expanded over the last 5 years. We've expanded to Bangalore and parts of Karnataka. We're exploring Bangalore now as a part of our new warehousing project. Then we do also have a proper warehouse in Andhra Pradesh, in Vijayawada, Chennai, Tamil Nadu. We're exploring to have a warehouse set up in the northeast of India, because I see immense potential in terms of upgradation of healthcare systems. Coming back to the second part of your question, SKUs. So I would just be able to give you a vague number. I think I particularly deal with 10,000 plus SKUs.
Oh, wonderful.
Because as I said, I deal with medical devices. So I also deal in medical implants and instrumentation. So I mean, in terms of trauma, in terms of joints, your knee replacements, your hip replacements. So all of these implants come in multiple sizes. Now, for example, the implant that would probably fit you would not probably fit
X, Y person, because multiple factors.
For every surgery, I would have to send 100 units, out of which only 1 unit is going to be used. In material of non-movement of certain stocks, we still have to maintain them. You never know when the requirement might come. So the SKUs would be 10,000 plus, I assume.
So for someone who's exploring this business and to get a better understanding of this business, can you explain the entire supply chain model from the manufacturing of the product? Manufacturing in the sense, once the company has made the finished product, to you giving your sale to probably your end customers, and also expand on who the end customers are to set some context, and explain the entire movement of the products from the buyer to the seller, and what is the role of Kunal Pharma as a mediatory in this?
Okay, I'll give you a nice answer on this one. So imagine a relay race.
Okay.
The manufacturer runs.
Okay.
And gives the baton to people like me, the distributor. I sprint, following stringent cold chain protocols, compliance hazards, quality checks, regulatories, and a lot more XYZ shit that you wouldn't know and you wouldn't want to care about. And then I hand it over to the pharmacy, to the customer. The customer could be a private or a government hospital. It could be an inpatient doctor-based clinic. It could be a nursing station. It could be a nursing clinic, or it could be a direct-to-patient delivery.
But
so wait, let me come back.
Sorry, sir.
So we are not the middlemen here, but I think we are the major part of this junction. Maintaining all the needs and requirements and the complexity of that product, we handle right from the manufacturing end to the end user.
So one thing is every business functions on the retail model and has to go B2B at one point in time. A pharmaceutical distribution business is 80% of the time B2B. How does one approach their end customer? Do you approach the general pharmacy or do you approach doctors on appointment basis? We've seen multiple times every clinic that we go to, every general physician that we go to, there's going to be the set of patients who are visiting the doctor and there are going to be medical representatives.
True.
So do you go as a medical representative or do you market yourself in the way? How is it that you find your customers and build your network in this business?
So let me get you one thing very straight. All the corporate setups in Hyderabad, they run a mafia.
Why would you say that? What would that mean?
The end game for them is business, is numbers. Okay, now let me give you an example. How many branches do you see of Yashoda hospitals across city?
There are multiple, but in my opinion, I've seen at least 4 or 5 branches easily.
Exactly. Care hospitals.
Care hospitals, the one in Banjara Hills, if
There's
I'm not
one in
wrong.
Nampally, there's one in High Tech City,
Correct.
and there are around 11-12 other branches in India, in other parts of India. So for them to sustain and to continue offering the services and advancements, do you think they would send a patient out to buy the same medicine for a cheaper price?
No, of course.
See, now the hospital would sell the product at the MRP, but we sell at a wholesaler's price, the agreement price with the company. So now I'll give you one more straight fact about how this thing works. So the Indian economy, as you're aware, all the multinational pharma companies that I was talking about, all their specialty drugs, they are priced at a very nominal price in India, though it sounds crazy, like a small 5 ml injection, a vial of a certain cancer product is costing 5 lakhs, but trust me, Pradyum, the same drug, you go to the European market or you go to the US market, is going to charge you at least 3 times of that.
See that
I'm still giving you the answer to this. So the hospital is still going to charge MRP to the patient, and it's a part of their protocol and rules. And there are only few people who would have the access to take a special permission from the hospital administration to come out and buy the medicine from us. So these days what has started to happen, just because a treatment, an oncology treatment is not just a mental harassment for the patient, but it's also a big financial burden, if you see.
Correct.
So if a family doesn't have a medical insurance or anything as such, and if they are still from that middle income side, affording a 20 or a 30 lakh treatment is quite a pain. So these days the doctors have started to personally push a lot of patients who will not be able to afford that kind of a treatment inside the hospital. They push them to distributors, to us directly, and we give them at the same hospital price. But the only thing is they have to get that infusion. They have to get the infusion of the drug elsewhere, but not at the same hospital.
What does infusion mean?
Infusion is nothing but it's your regular infusion of any other drug. So chemotherapy, targeted, whatever, while I'm talking about, that has to be infused in your body, right? For the thing to start working. So when you go for a chemo session, you have a nice fancy sofa, you lay there, you have a chemo port, they're going to connect it, and it's connected to the multi-dose vial or whatever it is, and the thing is infused in your body.
In my knowledge, specialized drugs, they have a very less shelf life.
No, not really.
Then one of the biggest constraints that you would have is the cold chain management and managing these drugs. If not, then why is this an issue? Cold chain management of these products.
See, cold chain management is one of the most important factors here, and trust me, it's not easy. I'll give you one more nice example that I'm able to remember right away. I still remember it was a random day and I had just started, I just joined the family business. I see a cold chain reefer vehicle leaving my warehouse at 3 a.m. carrying a single vial of an injection that could save a child's life.
Oh.
That's when I realized that pharma distribution is not just about moving boxes or cartons filled with strips and capsules. It's about moving hope. It's about moving precision. It's about moving humanity in that one vial via a delivery system to save a life. It is complex. Trust me. There are three things I could describe this on: temperature control, timing, and trust. Prescriptions are tight. I mean, there are a lot of prescriptions coming in now. I'm sad to say this. Cancer has been spreading aggressively in South Asia right now. And India is one of the biggest hubs for cancer. So temperature control, timing and trust. Prescriptions are tight, timelines are tighter, and trust, Pradyum, is non-negotiable. If I have these three things set with my customer being the private hospital or the government hospital, they're going nowhere without me. I'm going to be with them for a longer time.
So, one more question that I wanted to ask you is, given that you manage a portfolio for multiple companies, you had mentioned 50 companies, obviously there's a certain obligation that you have towards these companies. Do they give you a certain target that these are the number of vials that have to be sold, or these are the number of vials that have to be purchased in order to continue a partnership with us? How does this particular partnership between the MNC and a distributor like you work like? What's the relationship?
So, it varies. It varies from agreement to agreement. But first, let me clarify this straight from my heart. We don't go out selling medicines or giving gyan to somebody who's already gyanful. You mean the doctor? You think if I go to him with some technical knowledge of something that he's the bap of, you think he's going to give me some attention there? No.
Obviously.
So companies like Pfizer, AstraZeneca, they have their trained representatives who go meet the healthcare professionals on a very regular basis, and they don't talk about the same thing every time. They give them knowledge and information about advancements of the product, about the trials, about the data that keeps coming in every day on a day-to-day basis. So, all the data directly goes to the doctor, and the doctor knows whom to prescribe what. And the numbers are still met. I think the representatives are maybe doing a great damn job, or maybe the number of patients are really increasing with every passing day. But again, there is no such pressure from any of these companies with the distributor, but in terms of specialty drugs. But in terms of pharma, it's a different ball game altogether.
So one thing is the product is sold on MRP by the hospital. And one thing is, as a wholesaler, you have to obviously give a lesser price for them to have their own margin. So do you also have to keep in mind the amount of commission that is going to the doctor, or do you have to keep in mind the discount going to the hospital? Does that system function like based on the customer, or how do you account for that?
I have no comments in terms of the commission to doctors. I really don't know or don't know and haven't seen any such case from my own eye. But in terms of hospital, they're always craving for more margin because the overheads are high, the equipment is expensive, the tests and the advancements that are coming in every day, they are a burden to the hospital. For them to sustain and continue to offer these services, they need to keep charging people the kind of money they are.
So if somebody is, suppose, my age, who's looking for a career in this industry, one thing is that we of course have to work our way into the industry where we have to work under someone. But after we've learnt enough of the business, how do we start our own distribution? How do we approach these companies? How do we accept that distribution? How would you suggest somebody to enter this industry if they are interested in entering it?
You need to get comfortable with the uncomfortness. So see, it's not an easy job. I have a full built counseling team at office. Imagine a cancer patient walks in to buy a drug, and when they tell you their story, it's an emotional trauma. It's not easy to think of selling a product to them. It's more about helping them at that point. It is uncomfortable. Not just for me, for anybody in that matter. I hope you get what I mean.
Correct.
So, if somebody, I think if somebody has discipline, precision, a way to go ahead with integrity and ethics and compliances, and somebody who believes in humanity could thrive in this industry. But when it comes to oncology, the competition is getting immense. Opportunities are coming, but the competition with every passing day, with the regulatory departments of India cutting on prices of the products, the parent company just tries to reduce your margins. The end customer, which is the hospital or the other body, they would not take that hit.
Correct.
The hit has to be taken by the distributor. So I'm not trying to demotivate you. It's an open market. Opportunities are immense with every passing day. But again, as I said, if you're ready to get comfortable with the uncomfortness, and if you have that passion for humanity, if you have that precision, if you can follow ethics, if you have that integrity, if you're ready to deal with complexity, then I think you can.
What are the regularities or the set of rules or licenses which you have to follow as a distributor, and you have to be very, very transparent with the government? What are a set of rules or non-negotiable set by the government when you come into pharma distribution?
So there are a lot of them. For example, the basic licenses that you're required to have would be from the Drug Control Authority of Telangana. Like every other state has their own Drug Control Authority, which internally has their own team of drug inspectors assigned to different areas. Like Secunderabad area would have an assigned drug inspector whose duty would be to regularly inspect the retail pharmacy stores, the distributors in those areas, see for the documentation with them. So these are the wholesale and retail license that you have to deal with in the first place. These are required for every distributor, no matter you're into the generic sector or the general pharmaceutical sector or the oncology and specialty sector. Now, apart from this, there are a lot of other licenses that are also required. Now, there are a lot of people who are dealing in narcotics. The morphines, the opioids, and the other things. So these are not sold by me or any other general pharma guy. So for this, you require an additional license, which is Schedule H or Schedule H1. Similarly, there is a Schedule X1 license. There is a Form 20F. So there's there's a lot of regulatory involved in your day-to-day business. We have to be compliant with. Documentation has to be rock solid, or you never know when an inspection happens and your license has been suspended. A pharmacist with a document has to be present at any given point of time during dispensation of any medication, no matter what.
So my next question is, the healthcare industry in general is an ever-changing industry. Every day there are new updates. Every day there's a new disease. Every day there are a lot of cases. So as a distributor, how do you actually keep in track with the changes in the market and the changes in the general drugs? How do you cope with that, and what is your strategy, and what would you suggest us to keep in mind when the pharmaceutical industry is transitioning so much in terms of the drugs that are being distributed in the market? How do you keep that in mind?
I particularly, in Kunal Pharma, me and my brother, we spend a lot in tech, in training, and in trust. So both Kunal and I, we've been regularly visiting medical expos related to pharmaceutical drugs, related to packaging, related to medical devices and surgical all across the globe very regularly from the last 6-7 years. That is where we get to know and see the latest advancements and upgradation in the medical facilities and systems that are coming with every passing day. So I think you need to be updated with that kind of shit, or else it is difficult to survive.
One thing is that in pharmaceuticals you have to be a distributor, and in pharmaceuticals is that you have to give products at a high volume. A lot of times there's a certain credit period that hospitals offer you. How is the payment structure like for hospitals or your end consumers for that matter? I'm just going with the assumption that let's go with hospitals now, because if it's a retail customer, he'll pay you.
It's cash and carry.
It's cash and carry. But if it comes to hospitals or general pharmas, what is the payment structure like? What's the credit period like?
So I think again this would purely depend on the kind of relationship you share with the customer. So, but generally speaking, I think it would range anywhere between 30 to 90, 30 to 120 at extreme cases in the private setups, and with the government bodies, you know how it is.
Obviously.
It's usually 6 to 8 months, and sometimes maybe beyond that.
So if payments take so long, how do you manage with working capital? Do you also have an advantage to your hand कि you have enough working capital, or the MNCs that you're distributing for, they also give you a significant credit period?
So a lot of companies offer you a certain credit period, but again, it's nothing compared to the credit period I just spoke about.
Okay,
It's
very,
nominal.
very strict.
Somebody would give you a 7-day credit period. Somebody would give you a 21-day credit period. Few companies would probably give you a 30 or 45 max. But again, it's not easy to be assigned by these companies that I just spoke about as their official or authorized channel partner. The major qualities that they look for in a distributor, one of the biggest factors here that they would consider before appointing you as a distributor is your muscle power, your financial muscle. They run a background check, they have a due diligence team doing their work for 6 months. It's not easy, I'm telling you. Companies like Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Novartis, Grifols, they take at least 8 to 9 months of processes before having you on board as their authorized channel partner.
Okay.
And you have written agreements with them about each and everything. So the major factor for them is the muscle power, because they understand the Indian economy and the way things work around. So immaterial of when your customer pays back, that is based on your relationship, but my payment with the company has to go on spot, on the agreed term.
Slightly related question towards research of the market in general. Could you tell me any 3 companies or a few companies in India that we should look out for in the pharmaceutical space as manufacturers who are going to be the leaders in the Indian market in the near future, in terms of the products that they have or in terms of how they've disrupted the market? Any 3 companies or companies that you're comfortable with?
So, the pharmaceutical industry overall has been gradually and aggressively booming around the globe. I'm sure you're aware of that.
100%.
In fact, it gives me immense pleasure to give you this knowledge that 20% of the global medical supply chain is met by India.
Okay.
60% of the vaccine demand is again processed and executed by India. 40% of the generic medicine requirement of the United States of America is again India. 1/4 of the entire medicine requirement of the United Kingdom is again India. So the way I see it, the Indian manufacturing sector is booming both in the domestic market and in their international market as well. A lot of these companies are based out of Hyderabad, based out of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, and I'm very proud.
Please?
Hetero Labs,
Okay.
Dr. Reddy's,
Okay.
Divis Labs, Natco, Loris Labs, and the companies I would bet for the international business, it would probably be Hetero, Divis, Loris. Dr. Reddy's is good too, but I would bet my money in Dr. Reddy's for their domestic business. The kind of advancements and innovated molecules that they are getting along with time is great. So yeah, my bet would be for the export and international market, Divis Labs, Loris, and Hetero, and MSN also would be a good one. But I think Dr. Reddy's.
The Indian manufacturing industry as a whole is doing so right that we are one of the biggest manufacturers and resellers and distributors for a lot of pharmaceutical products, and in general also we have enough brands. What do you think the Indian pharmaceutical space is doing so right in terms of the manufacturing of the product, in terms of the research of the product, that we are standing out in comparison to other companies worldwide? What do you think we are doing so right? I wanted to ask, what is the Indian pharmaceutical space doing so right that we have such good numbers in terms of our research or in terms of the products that we manufacture? What is it that we are doing so right? We are so well as suppliers all over the world in the pharmaceutical space.
I think the regulatory board has proven to be an integral part here. They've supported and they've not just supported, in terms of compliances, but, in terms of motivating the Indian pharma companies to come out with innovative molecules and supporting them with the documentation part. But the major point here, I think, is, India, with the vast population, gives them direct access to clinical data. For any product to be approved or approved by a local authority or a regulatory body like the US FDA or the Indian Drug Association, CDSCO, and all the other associations, you need a clinical data. You need a set of clinical trials that you need to perform. So I think India has that population. India has that data, and this is why companies like Pfizer, Amgen, and a lot of other multinational companies have now set up their manufacturing units in India, because they are able to get that kind of a data that they wouldn't probably get it from the States or Africa as a country. And data is money.
There was a particular case study where they had told us of this one particular data mining company where, not data mining company, sorry, a data company or a social media company, their servers had gotten hacked, because of which all the data, all the personal information of the users had got leaked. At the end of the day, they had to sell away the company, and they sold the company to an insurance firm. So since you had mentioned data is money, imagine the amount of information the users had on the health and how it can influence all of these insurance companies in actually granting insurance to the end user.
And imagine if, as per the Ayushman Bharat program, if every citizen of India is soon going to get their hands on a digital health card, which would have access to all your health information from the last decade.
Correct.
Like in terms of all your diagnoses, all your treatments, all your reports, and all your prescriptions. That data would, it all comes under data analytics. Now, if a big pharma company would get hold of this data, imagine, they will start working on the next medicine that would be a blockbuster in the Indian industry again.
India is the diabetes capital of the world. Do you think there are going to be enough companies who are going to transition into producing products for diabetics, and will you be starting distribution for that, or what is the scope for this particular disease? Unfortunately, it is true that we are the diabetic capital of the world, but given that I'm asking you questions related to business, I'd like your input
on a personal opinion, I would say that diabetes is not a disease. I think it's just a lifestyle disorder, and it can be treated extremely well with just a good diet, a good sleeping pattern, and a good exercise format. But otherwise, now in terms of business, diabetes, yes, it's been all-time high market, and it's growing with every passing day. And yes, we've recently entered the diabetic space as well. You must have heard about the new weight loss drug, Mounjaro, by Eli Lilly and Company. It's a US-based.
Can you give us more context on what this drug does?
So Mounjaro is basically a GLP-1 hormonal drug which naturally loses weight in your body. Your cravings for food would probably go down completely. This thing has been doing wonders all across the globe. It has just entered the Indian space, I think a month back, and it's majorly towards diabetes, and it's just a solution for obesity, but again it's a chronic medication. So I don't know what the side effects are going to be like, but the alternative to this drug was Ozempic, which I think you and every other person would have heard of. A lot of people have been on Ozempic from the last couple of years all across the United States, and now slowly a lot of side effects and stories have started to come out in the market. So there are a lot of patients who were on Ozempic are now diagnosed with thyroid cancer.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know what is about to happen next, but Mounjaro is the new bet for the Indian diabetic population. It has good clinical data right now, and I think the Indian medical fraternity also is accepting it well at the moment.
When we are in the pharma space, I think there are multiple cases, and I don't have to give enough examples because you've known enough. There's a very, very high chance that addiction happens because of pharmaceutical drugs, with opioids, with your tablets. You've seen enough cases, I'm 100% sure. What is the role or what is the responsibility of a pharmaceutical distributor in trying to reduce cases like these?
post your oral therapy, your tablet therapy, there are a lot of after effects. Pain is one amongst them. So palliative care is like a constant support that you would need. So I deal in those set of medications as well, being a part of supportive care of oncology. So, few people have pain, few people have hair fall, few people have a lot of weird rashes all across their body. So, we provide them with certain kind of palliative care medications. So, all of these drugs are tracked, logged, and audited on a regular basis. So my documentation has to be rock solid. So, I cannot have any loophole here, or else I know my license is going to be suspended. So every prescription that I dispense for, I will have a copy of it. I will have an Aadhaar card copy of the patient, just as the documentation involved, advised by the authorities again.
Do you think sometimes that having so many licenses and so many regularities in check, it's quite frustrating for businesses in general also when there are a lot of licenses involved. Do you think it acts as a burden, or it reduces your operational efficiency, or you accept it as
I'm happy the way it is.
Okay.
There are few people who still, follow the hanky-panky lines of business, who would probably not have the necessary licenses, but they still continue doing their businesses. And I feel that is unethical. That is not the right way of doing any form of business, and specifically pharmaceutical distribution and specialty drugs, because here a life is at stake.
Correct.
So, licenses are offered based on your premises, the things you follow, your SOPs, your temperature monitoring systems, and a lot more of the basic guidelines that every other distributor has to follow.
Thank you so much for doing this. Just one last question.
Yes.
I have to get to this. A few careers that you can suggest in this space to students of my age or who are looking for active jobs. What is a career space that you can suggest in the pharmaceutical industry? 1 or 2 careers is, as a suggestion, is enough. Yeah.
So somebody with the technical knowledge about pharmaceuticals would probably, apply for a job in any of the manufacturing plants. There's a lot of R&D happening at, all levels throughout the year. So R&D would not only involve the technical people, which are nothing but the scientists and the doctors, but it also involves a lot of pharmacists. It also involves a lot of business-minded people who can look after the procurement. To run any organization, you need a procurement team who take care of your general procurement plus your inventory intelligence, or whatever you call that. So that is one scope for a technical person. For a business-minded person or a marketing person, you could obviously apply in any of the pharmaceutical companies to be appointed as a medical representative. There are immense opportunities coming in every day. With every passing day, there's a new drug that's announced and approved for the Indian market that would require a certain skilled person who would understand the knowledge, who would understand the technical side of the product, and would also go and promote it amongst the doctors and the medical fraternity and the hospital space.
I said I'd not continue, but just one last follow-up on this particular question. Do you think now businesses should keep in mind using CRM softwares or using technologies like blockchain for their inventory management and their supply chain management? Do you think it's a viable option for them?
I think artificial intelligence, blockchain, all of these are very vital. And in fact, we are one of the very first ones to have initiated this in collaboration with Bristol Myers Squibb, in collaboration with Takeda Pharmaceuticals, in collaboration with Pfizer, and in collaboration with a lot more other companies. You will not believe a patient has to give me an OTP for me to dispense on a mobile-based application that only I would have control of before I actually dispense the medicine to a patient. So we have been using these advancements in technologies for the last 6-7 months, and we are learning more with every passing day.
Does this even reduce the pain of constant stock keeping in a way?
Well, see,
Or
inventory management, inventory intelligence has also become a lot more easier for me. My dependency on a physical staff naturally has come down. My stock audits are much more better and convenient, and I think there's still more to come in space of tech.
Thank you so much for doing this. I'm glad I could learn about the pharmaceutical industry, the business of it, and the other cases that you've spoken about. It's given me so much context. I'm really, really grateful you could do this and you could give me your time. Thank you so much.
I was more than happy to do this, and I would also like to make a last statement. Usually, when people hear the phrase pharmaceutical distributors, they probably think that we are movers and packers of pharmaceutical drugs, strips, and bottles of syrup. But trust me, we are not. We are movers of hope. We are movers of care. We are movers of sensitive temperature, sensitive miracles. So it's not just about logistics. I think we are life support, but with a barcode.
That was the punchline. That was
Thank
perfect.
you so much, Pradyum, for having me. It was
It's been a
fun.
pleasure to have you. It's genuinely been a
was
pleasure to
pleasure.
have you. Thank you so much.
See you soon at the courts.